Might as well go ahead and lead into it with how we found this series.
And then the rabbi said, anyway,
6-inch pianist, what?
Oh god. Actually, I realised the rabbi thing is kind of accurate considering what the new show is focusing on.
Yeah.
That could be a joke in itself.
Yeah, it's definitely a joke in itself. But yeah, like the way I found it was I actually was listening to like all the old Spill reviews, and like they're talking about the Avatar movie, and all of a sudden all these grown men are like, this Avatar cartoon is so great, and they fucked up the movie, and I'm like, well, I might as well go take a look at it. And then I talked to my brother who has 4 kids, and he actually watches the show with the kids, because I mean it's not one of those shows like fucking most of the stuff on Nick Jr. that's gonna give my freaking nieces and nephews speech impediments. I mean, it's like,
Little Bill.
Hello, we're the Wonder Pets and we were on our way. That kind of shit. It's like, it's something that, it's decently written, and it's something that everyone of almost anybody, any age, can enjoy on some level.
Absolutely. It's one of those timeless shows because it's sort of, they were very heavily influenced by, old age stories and, obviously the Chinese, mythos, but also a lot of old films and stuff. There's a lot of that in Korra as well, that you can tell that these guys really know their stuff and they're trying to pay homage to all of it. I mean, there's scenes in Korra where they're doing stuff from Strawberry Blonde and just stuff that would go over a kid's head, but they utilize it and bring it to a new audience. The original series was doing all of that, and I think it's that knowledge and understanding that you just don't see in kids shows now. You see it more now actually than you used to, like about 2 years ago, but it was just something those guys had that made them master storytellers. And while the 3rd season sort of dipped, I think seasons 1 and 2 and a lot of season 3 are by and large some of the best stuff on television.
Absolutely. And we're talking about the original Airbender, obviously.
Yes, exactly. It was the only show my parents would watch with the entire family that was animated at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they'd watch animated movies and stuff, but
Yep, and that's the best thing I mean, it kind of transcends the whole entire... There's kind of like a cartoon stigma in the United States.
Yeah.
Cartoons are for kids, that kind of thing. And this kind of takes it to the next level, kind of like Samurai Jack did. Remember that show?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
That totally, beautiful artistic vision, has a lot of, references to, like you said, other material, and just brought it all together and made such a freaking great show for all ages.
Yeah, too often you see it's sort of like it's either too much in love with the animation or too much in love with the story. And I think what's lovely about this one is that they really balance the both of them. So no
Absolutely.
one. Yeah, exactly. They both married beautifully.
Yeah, and that's great because you're a student of animation and I'm a hack writer, so it's the best of both worlds.
Well, I'd still say I'm a hack animator. Yeah.
But I'm surprised that this when Legend Korra came out, I mean, it started off so freaking great, and the fact that the 2nd season, which was recently released 3 weeks ago, I believe, it actually got the lowest turnout so far between it and the previous season. So,
I mean, there were a lot of reasons people have been bandying about, as to why this happened.
Right.
I mean, one of them is the time slot, which you would know about better, I think, because, you're actually in the country where they're releasing it currently, instead of, me just being a pirate and getting it all out online.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh, that's fair enough.
I'm not
contributing
to that 2.6 million viewers. I mean,
so now that we've established why the series didn't do so well.
Exactly. It's because of assholes like us saying, I'm going to watch it, I'm going to keep it.
But I think it's really telling that, we all watch stuff online now, and I think the fact that Korra, when it first came out, all that stuff was still happening, and it still managed to rake in, was it 3.6 million views? I need to get the number up again.
4.5 was the
4.5,
season premiere of the Legend of Korra, which is very, very good for, especially a Nickelodeon show.
I think it kind of says a lot about... It just seems very natural that because there was a lot of fan outcry at the end of Korra, and I went on the official Avatar forums a while ago. They're really good guys, and I asked the guy, "What's the situation down here? I haven't been on here in a couple of years," and he said to me, "Well, the truth is that everyone's saying that there are a lot of issues with the first season that the writers are looking to address,
yes,
and
please.
it's kind of pissed. Yeah, it's pissed off a lot of fans." I think part of that number being lower than it was before is that some people went from, oh, we really need to go and see this, to, I guess I'll catch it when it's on later.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate too. I mean, granted, I'm one of those people who had a lot of issues with the first season. A lot of the story elements, especially towards the end, just came out of fucking nowhere, and they spent way too goddamn much time on that fucking bending sport spree.
Oh, so many people have complained about that.
Yeah,
and I know
why.
why.
Basically Avatar Blitzball, you know.
or rather, I should have laughed. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, exactly. There we go.
Oh God. Did you just like choke a cat in the middle of the record?
No, I'm torturing some Vietnamese people in the back of my room.
Oh well, that's perfectly more understandable.
Pulling their intestines out of their mouths, you know.
I hate to bring a Frasier reference in here, but I see you're following Martin's advice. You know what we used to do if we were hard up for dates? I don't know, Dad. Invade Korea. This is actually, I just realized, because Avatar is a Eastern inspired show. That's probably in really poor taste.
I know. Yeah, but it's still an American-made show, so it still has some relevance. First we invade the East, and now we're trying to make up with it by stealing their animation styles.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all animated in Korean studios. Oh dear, this got off to a wonderfully welcoming start for our Eastern brothers.
I know, but you want to get back to the numbers, because
yeah,
the season premiere of the very first season was 4.5 million views, and then of course the lowest rated episode received like 2.9. Overall, it came out to be about 3.5 million views per episode in the original series, and this one got off to a start of, I believe, 2.6. So I really think it's too early to tell whether or not the show quality has any effect on it, though. But I think it's the fact that maybe they just didn't market it enough.
I think it's also down to marketing. Yeah,
this kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest.
I mean, the reason I'd still kind of go by the quality is that it's just the huge amount of people who really spoke out against the ending when it happened, and also sort of bits at the end of that series. But watching the second season and the way it's playing out at the moment, I can kind of see why they rushed the end of the first season, because it feels like all the character development and all the interesting stuff we were expecting actually has wound up into the second season, because people forget the first one was never meant to be was it 24 episodes or 20 episodes long?
I guess they didn't even expect it to go beyond what it was, because it was just supposed to be like, oh well, here's what happened after the original Avatar series, and tra-la-la, there we go, there's your short story.
Absolutely, it was going to be a 14 episode long short piece, kind of detailing how the world still had issues. I mean, the ideas behind the equalist movement, I think, is just fantastic. That's such a great move to make.
It's a great political story.
Absolutely, and they didn't really deal with that in the last couple of episodes, and I think it's because Nickelodeon suddenly came to them and said, by the way guys, we want 4 more seasons of this. That's a really hard game to play, very, very risky.
Yeah.
And also the fact, just one last thing really about the writing, was that it's that the first season was only written by the first 2 writers, and that's taking into consideration the fact that they then had to make rewrites and edits and heavily change the end of the series. And a lot of the original series was written by a guy called Aaron Ehars as well as them, and you can really tell his creative synergy is lacking from the new series.
Definitely, because the original series, like I said, spent way too much time on the entire bending game, and then the entire ending about the identity of Amon was just so...
that was such a fucking
they dropped the ball. I mean, it's like an Agatha Christie novel where it's like, okay, well, we got all these 9 people in this house and they're dying off one by one. One of these guys is a killer. Oh no, at the end it's revealed there's some guy hiding in the attic named Mr. Biggles, and it's like, oh, I'm the killer. And it's like, who are you and where the fuck did you come from?
Well, that's the biggest problem, is that because it's a flashback, it's not that it doesn't make sense, because it does make perfect sense. It's the fact that you can't care enough about it because it's not strongly connected enough to Korra. So she can't develop, they don't develop. It's just, oh, by the way, that happened. You might as well be reading a biography about it,
Yeah, and the worst thing is, like, like you said, most of the exposition was done in flashbacks.
Yeah,
and that
many
really
flashbacks.
really pissed me off is the fact that I'm having a vision about what happened 50 years ago, and I'm going to get all these little bits and snippets of what's going on, and finally at the very last episode it explains what's going on, and it's like, you could have set this up just a little bit better pacing, maybe get rid of half that blitzball shit, and just like had a better mystery. One that was actually solvable. And I still think that if that girl who Mako was dating was
Asami,
if she was fucking Amon, it would have been fucking great. It would have been.
I still think she could be. I mean, the thing about Asami is that another complaint people had about the characters like Korra and Bolin and Mako was that Bolin's a really good example of how sort of superficial a lot of the characters were compared to the original series. The thing about Sokka was that even though he was the funny one, he was also the leader of the group, as appointed in the first few episodes, and took himself quite seriously at times. He had a lot of inadequacy issues, and he also, he had some really tragic stuff that happened to him. The fact that he couldn't bend like everyone else, and he was very multifaceted. Whereas Bolin is very much just nothing really goes massively wrong for him without him being overly hilariously dramatic about it, and he's very kind of one note. Marco's the same, because Zuko. What I really liked about Zuko, and the reason he was so endearing, was because there's actually a point where he says, "You know what? All this angsting I'm doing, it's dumb." And it was the first kids show to ever say, you know what, to angst is to be a really self-absorbed bitch.
Yep.
And yeah, exactly. And Mako kind of is exactly what that was never meant to be, and that's irksome.
Yeah, all the characters are a little bit flatter than what they should be, and then of course Korra is the rebel, where it's like, don't tell me what to do, I'm better than this, and of course she
works a lot better in the newer episodes than in that series.
Definitely better than the first season anyway.
Yeah. I mean, at some point we will talk about that second season, but I think it's important to recognize those issues with the first season, because, as much as people might defend it, the writers themselves, and this is part of the reason why they are so great, they listened to all of these comments and they said, you know what, you guys are right, we're going to change it. They brought in new writers, they brought back some of the old writers, they, put more focus on pacing and,
Pacing, yes, pacing.
Yeah, that is such a good creative team. A team who listens to criticism, unlike, some people I know in the industry. Oh, man.
We won't mention his name, Sam Dot.
But anyway, we should probably talk about the fact that the new series, which has come out, despite the fact it hasn't gotten the best reception views-wise, is actually, the both of us, from what I can gather, we're enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's getting off to a great start. Not that the original series didn't get, or the original season didn't get off to a great start.
The first 5 episodes of Korra are fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just the art direction, and I mean, it can always do those like subtle nuances where you just have like the music and the animation. It kind of tells like the story, and I just fucking love that. But what's going on right now is, first of all, in the first 5 seconds of the fucking new series, they get rid of the entire blitzball game. It's like, oh, here we are back at the pro bending, whatever the fuck it's called, and here come the reigning champions, and they got knocked out within the first second, and I'm like, yes, get the fuck out of there.
It's what I love about these writers. They're always doing this thing of, we know what went wrong the first time, guys, don't worry. I mean, they did it in Korra when the kid sees Tenzin for the first time, or maybe it's Korra, I can't remember, and says, oh, by the way, what happened to Zuko's mom? And it's like, it's such a great, facet to have as a human being, to be able to laugh at yourself and to say, you know what, we screwed up. Yeah. And it pays off in the storytelling. You're so right about how great it was that they got rid of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the religious argument that they brought up here is a much more compelling idea, the way that they presented it, to the way they presented the equalist movement before.
Yep.
It's not just, he's a bad guy. In fact, in the latest episode we watched, what I really like about it is that you're still, I mean, it's really obvious he's doing something bad.
Yeah.
But you still, I still can't figure out whether he really believes what he's doing, or whether there is a bigger agenda behind all of this.
See, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, you could take a look at like the first 2 or 3 episodes of the new season and think that Korra's uncle is basically following kind of like a Thor plotline, where there's a skinny magician guy, and he's trying to set up his older brother, who's kind of like the Neanderthal of the group, to fall in order to obtain power. And but towards the end of the third season, I was wondering, or the third episode, I was wondering if there isn't some bigger agenda, like something to do with that one. The character I absolutely freaking love is that Howard Hughes / Tony Stark.
Oh, he's great, isn't he?
Slash cocaine type of character who's just like this absolutely eccentric businessman. I think there's something going on with him, though, to be honest. But
yeah, it does feel that way. And what's nice is that they haven't made it too obvious that they might be having these serious, agendas behind their backs. They've kind of kept it reasonably neutral and said, well, these guys are just like this.
Right.
And that's good writing. That's what the original series was so good at. With Azula, for example, it's like it's obvious she's crazy, but why was she crazy? What exactly was going on behind that?
Exactly. And it's I think right now it's too straight and narrow that it's so obvious that the uncle is trying to push an agenda and trying to manipulate Korra to do something to give him power.
Yeah.
I mean,
I kind of felt there were moments in the new episode where he was sort of genuinely believed the idea that, she is meant to be the Avatar, she is neutral, which makes you would kind of suggest the idea that, well, maybe he is really trying to do the right thing and really trying to balance this, but his ego has just gotten the better of him.
Exactly. The path to hell is paved with good intentions. And that's what I'm kind of getting it with a vibe of, at the end of the second episode, it kind of got like almost like a Nazi Germany type vibe where you have, or maybe even a Crusade vibe, where you have an invading army trying to, impose what it deems is the right thing to do onto like another nation, and reunite the North and the South by force. So
and of course, it kind of brings up all the issues. Obviously, there's parallels to what happened in the original series where the Fire Nation attacks to begin with.
Absolutely.
The fact that was also about sort of divine right as much as it was about conquering.
Yep.
And I think it's a much more interesting angle to sort of wipe the slate clean with than to... I don't know. I mean, I really do want them to get back to the Amon story, but I think it was wise of them to say, well, you know what? Let's leave behind the Equalist stuff for now. Let's try something new. Let's see if we can start fresh. And religion is a really strong idea for a series that is so spiritual. That's really ballsy to kind of go against that.
Yep.
Because, in a world where these spirits, we know they exist. We know that the characters are very religiously inclined. And the idea to challenge that, even knowing that this isn't just a religion, it's actually kind of fact, I think it's a really interesting concept to go with.
Yeah, even though I still want to see some resolution to the Equalist thing, because that just fell apart. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, no one who was a follower of the Equalists, who were just normal people who hated the Benders because the Benders oppressed them, none of those people survived and are like, what, we were manipulated by a Bender and we're still pissed.
You would have thought that they'd all kind of rise up even more against Benders. There would be even more unrest.
I know.
And they kind of shrugged that off this season with a thing that said, they've elected a president now. And it's like, well, that sounds interesting. Well, who elected him?
Bender or something? Or
yeah, exactly. What's the majority vote here? Are people mostly Benders, or are they mostly non-Benders in Republic City?
Yeah, so, my guess is maybe the president's not a Bender, and that's the only way they could really, appease the masses, is saying, you guys have a voice now.
And in a sense, that's just as bad as what Amon was doing, because, you have this figurehead who, just because he's, not a Bender, doesn't mean that he's necessarily a completely scrupulous fellow,
Exactly.
And I still feel that Asami could go back and do it because, as a character, she had the most interesting stuff happen to her in the first season.
She has the most reason to become the fucking Amon.
Yeah.
I mean...
Her father betrayed her and the entire city, and she can't bend herself. Benders took away her boyfriend. Yep. Constantly proved that they, had all these amazing powers that kind of, even though she had all this electrical stuff, which was awesome, and she could do all these moves and she was rich, they still kind of bettered her emotionally and sort of in generally amongst the populace.
Yep.
And if that was me, I mean, I'd feel upset about that,
yeah,
and she
right.
clearly does.
I mean, you're right. I mean, Korra took away her boyfriend, who was a Bender, and her dad's in jail now because of Korra, and her entire family's empire is in shambles because of Korra. And they, even in the first series, they recognized what happened to her mom, which kind of fell into that whole, my parents were killed by a firebender kind of thing that Amon was preaching. So of everyone, it should have been her, because it would have been such a fucking great story. I mean, it would have been like, a story about masks, where which face is the real you, and maybe the mask that she wore is actually the mask that she wore in front of Korra and Mako and the others, and her real face is Amon.
Damn, son, why aren't you writing this? Like, that's.
I should be writing it. That's just it. I'm not. No, I'm joking about that. I'm not one of those people who are like, he's just a snotty-nosed asshole who wants to write Nickelodeon cartoons. So
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, for me, I still think it could still happen. There was a really interesting premise at the end of the series where she had her powers taken. It was such a cop-out that was related to bloodbending after everything that happened in the third season with the lion turtle. But, that's minutiae. That's neither here nor there. And I kind of felt that it would have been cool if for the series following that everybody hated the Avatar, which they're starting to do now, that, she had no powers, and that because of her brashness in the first series, the lesson that she would learn as the series went on was to relearn all of those abilities. Mm-hmm. And it would bring her closer to Aang, because she'd be calling on him for spiritual advice, obviously.
Yep.
It would mirror what would happen with Roku in the first season. And it allows the writers to explore more of the fact that she is quite brash and very different from Aang. Mm-hmm. The fact that she would have to, take this guy's advice is much more peaceful in order to reclaim the ability she thought she'd already mastered.
Yep.
But they haven't gone down that road, but they're starting to with the new series, and that's, again, I think it was just a natural step, to go back to the idea of, okay, we really need to move Korra on now, because she hasn't moved on from episode 1 of season 1 to episode 24.
Right, she's still basically the same character. I mean, she really hasn't developed much. I mean, I think she's even more cocky than she was in the very beginning, because she's like, well,
definitely.
I beat him on, and I don't need you, Grandpa.
In a sense, that kind of makes for better drama. I mean, that was actually really moving when she comes back to her father and she says to him, I can't believe that I, let myself get manipulated.
Yeah. Thought you were gonna. I started turning against my family, and I turned against everyone else, and I was being manipulated and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and at the same time, she still cares for her uncle, which I think is
between a rock and a hard place right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really compelling story, and I think that they're back on their game. Mm-hmm. I still want to see them do something more interesting with Bolin. I think Mako's getting there. I like the idea that we're actually addressing the fact that, well, what is Mako meant to say now that he's her boyfriend,
Exactly.
Now that we got the romance out of the way, well, what can he really do for her? And I think that they're handling that very maturely, compared to the stuff going on in the first one.
He's acting just like a boyfriend too. It's like, do you want me to be supportive, or you want me to tell you what to do? I mean, that's
he compared her to he compared girlfriends to like a leech that you have to pry
you
off.
have to pick. I mean, just off topic. There's a What Women Want Expo coming to my hometown. And,
oh wow!
And I'm like, you know what men want? Men want women who know what the fuck they want.
You have got to go down there. You got to hold placards and take pictures.
I know. And if anyone calls me out on, I'll be like, well, I'm just being that guy from 50 Shades of Grey, and everyone's like, oh, I love you.
Oh, I would pay you so much money to do that. But I mean, there are actually whole threads online dedicated to what a terrible person Mako was after the first season ended. Mm-hmm. You can't, go 10 minutes, on the internet looking for stuff on Korra without seeing a comment that says, you know what, Mako was horrible. And I think, again, I don't think it's the character's fault. I think the character, I know what they're trying to get across, but the writing just hasn't done it properly at that stage.
Yeah.
And they're getting there now.
Yeah, it is getting there now, luckily. And I'm especially loving the extended family with Boomy and...
Yeah.
God, I mean, not that they haven't done a whole lot to this point, though, but it kind of shed some light on, Aang's later life, and it's just the dynamic of these three characters. I absolutely freaking... I'm starting to actually, really like this small family. And
same. I think they're really engaging. Mm. I think they're really engaging. This whole idea of, you know what, Aang wasn't as perfect as we've led you to believe so far. Mm-hmm. He was like any other guy. He had loads of faults, and you never really felt in the first series that anything between Tenzin and Aang, obviously, because that wasn't the focus. But I really like that they're addressing that now. How did these people act in context? How do we how do we compare that to what's happening with Korra now?
Right, like Aang spent more time with his airbending son than he did with the waterbending daughter, or even just Bumi, the non-bender of the group.
Exactly, because they could easily come off as aggressive to Tenzin, but they have every right to be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And also, you can also see it with Katara, when there's the bit where they're sitting at the table and they're picking on Tenzin, and Katara's she's obviously not happy about the way that things have turned out.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of brings into question, well, what's Katara's relationship with the other two, you know? The fact that if the stories that they're telling her to be believed, then she clearly hasn't seen Tenzin that much in her lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So
she's spending more time with her mom, taking care of her mom.
Yeah, exactly, and having to look after the other two.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really nicely done. Although, I'll tell you what, my mum did say something very funny. She kind of turned to me after we'd watched an episode, and she said, so wait a minute, am I the only one who thinks it's really dodgy that the kid named after Boomy kind of looks almost exactly like Boomy? I was like, yeah, there's kind of some weird implications there, but I don't think they're worth thinking about.
Aang was out of town that weekend.
The White Lotus tribe, you know, just kind of came in. And, you know, she just wanted an older man, so...
You know, it'd be really awesome if we, like, crossed water and earth.
Oh, that would be mud, you know.
Yeah, I know. But
it's like in Sam and Max when Sybil gives birth to Abraham Lincoln's son and we never see it. It must be like a rock, because, like, Abraham Lincoln's just a stone marble head. And
her water breaks and pennies come out of her. I mean, that's so wrong on so many levels.
I'm going into labor, but at least I'll be able to cover it.
Ka-ching, sounds like a slot machine.
Oh, God.
Cherry, cherry, cherry.
Change bending. Oh, man.
Oh, fuck.
Baby bending.
Oh, God. There's the next route. I mean, they've already done all the elements. Now they're starting to go into spirit. Next thing you know, they're going to start doing the baby bending, like you said.
Man, I really want to know how he does that whole spirit bending. How he, you know, gets them to calm down. It's a really nice idea. Mm. And also the fact that apparently the voice actress for Azula is going to be voicing the Dark Spirit and a few other characters.
Yeah, so I wonder if, like, Azula won't make a snap a read. But they say other characters and older versions of previous characters, in quotes, air quotes. So I'm wondering if, like, maybe there might be some, I'm hoping to God it's not flashbacks, but maybe there's some spirit, you know, witchery with Azula coming back.
That would be very cool. Because, I mean, she spent obviously the last, sorry about the burp there, she spent obviously the last years of her life, you know, insane, out of her mind in jail, along with her father, I might add, which was covered in a comic book series that came out. And I'd be very curious to see if, you know, what she got up to in her time isolated from the rest of the world.
Or if she just becomes a vengeful spirit.
That could be the case as well. It could be simply that she just, you know, died, killed herself, whatever, and that has come back to take on the Avatar. Which, you know, considering she was such a great villain, I mean, I love the Fire Lord and everything, but we all consider Azula effectively to be the queen of that series. It would be really interesting if she effectively becomes sort of the overriding villain against the Avatar's sort of war on, you know, unrest.
Yeah,
I'd be very happy to see that happen.
Especially in a book called Spirits. I mean, anything's possible at this point.
See, in a book called Spirits, I just expect, you know, lots of gin and whiskey going around. So. Beer bending.
Jaeger bombs.
That must be so great, you know, if you're a bender. I was saying, actually, there's a storyline in a Spider-Man comic Kevin Smith wrote a while ago. I'm not a huge fan of it, but this idea that teleporters can, they give you better, you know, drug usage for Hollywood stars because no track lines, they just teleport it inside of you. And if they don't like you, then they can make it look like a suicide by teleporting you know, an overdose inside of you. So if you're a bender, imagine how great it must be to just control your own intake. You know, no track lines, no... You know, nobody can tell that you've had too much. It's just...
Book 5, heroin. Book 6, Breaking Bad.
Like, you know, Zuko and Aang, they just turn to each other one day. They're just like, you want to cook some meth? Sure.
It's blue. We'll sell it anyway. It's pure.
And then Flash turns up. He's like, hey guys, stop stealing my act. You know,
Running gag, ladies and gents. Nickelodeon DC crossover. Oh, fuck.
I would absolutely love that. Oh man.
Yeah, somebody out there write that. It'd be hilarious.
I would gladly write that.
The only problem is like only maybe like 2,000 people would ever get the joke.
I suppose. Actually, that's not bad on us. 2,100 subscribers so far. So
that's not bad.
Go on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Tell your friends. Just maybe not this video. Try finding something better.
You know, the thing about the original series was we need the Avatar. The great thing about this new world is, well, actually, you're living in a place where people are starting to think we don't need the Avatar.
Exactly.
You know, no matter what happens. I mean, there was an episode like Avatar Day in the original series, which was great, but you didn't have that sort of overarching feeling of we never need an Avatar. And they really needed to do something more with that. And they have the ability to. They own the rights, they own the image, they own the beautiful, gorgeous art style.
Yes.
To pull this off with some kind of emotional weight, they have every right to go back and continue to do it because they can. But that's, you know, it's hearsay right now. We don't know how it's gonna pan out.
Yep. So until then, everybody start watching this shit. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, if you're not already watching the show, please go and watch it. Because, well, I imagine if you've heard this far, you are. But you know, it's such a great show so far. Even the first season, for all the things we complained about, still a great show compared to what else is out there.